Sometimes luck arrives wearing a borrowed dress with a faulty seam. The stitch gave way just as Lena Hart stood to leave the interview. A soft, ripping sound that echoed in the marble-floored sitting room of Prescott Estate. She froze. Heat crawled up her neck. Behind her, the gray fabric gaped open along her thigh. Richard Prescott sat forward in his leather chair. Margaret, his wife, tilted her head with something that looked like curiosity, not contempt. Lena didn't run. She didn't apologize. She unwound the cardigan from her shoulders, wrapped it around her waist, and tied it with steady hands. Then she smiled, small, real, a little defiant. I suppose this dress couldn't handle the pressure of such an important interview. Richard laughed. It was genuine, startling in a house that felt too quiet for laughter. Margaret's voice was soft. Miss Hart, at least you know how to adapt. Lena nodded once, and walked out with her chin level and her heart hammering. She heard Margaret whisper as the door clicked shut. People who still feel shame know how to love. 3 days later, the call came. The job was hers. Twice the standard rate for private nursing. Enough to cover her mother's medicine, her sister's college courses, her niece's school fees, and the electric bill that had been sitting on the kitchen table for weeks. Lena saved the contact. Prescott Estate. Start date: Monday. Somewhere in that vast, silent house, Ethan Prescott sat staring at a photograph of a racetrack, wondering if the new nurse would last longer than the others. Lena's world was loud, cramped, and never quite clean enough. Her mother coughed in the bedroom they shared, the sound rattling through thin walls. In the living room, her brother-in-law hunched over his laptop, sketching car parts for freelance gigs that paid late or not at all. Her nieces, Maya and Jenna, shrieked over a plastic truck, their voices high and sharp. Her sister Keisha sat at the kitchen table, textbooks open, eyes bloodshot from another night shift at the diner before logging into community college at dawn. Lena was 28, divorced for 3 years. Her ex-husband had left when the bills started piling up, when her family moved in, when love became logistics. She didn't blame him, but she didn't forgive him either. She pulled out the hospital bill, stapled, highlighted, past due, all of it waiting. We'll be okay, Lena said. Keisha squeezed her hand. You always say that. Because it's always true. But later, lying in the dark beside her mother's uneven breathing, Lena wondered how much longer okay could stretch before it snapped. Monday would come whether she was ready or not. The Prescott Estate sat on 12 acres of manicured lawn. Lena's 15-year-old sedan looked out of place on the curved gravel drive. Margaret Prescott met her at the door. Tall, silver-haired, dressed in understated linen. Her handshake was soft. Miss Hart, welcome. Margaret led her through a hallway lined with framed photographs, vintage cars, racetracks, a young man mid-laugh in a pit crew jacket. Ethan. Before. They stopped at a door on the second floor. Margaret's voice dropped. He'll test you. He tests everyone. I understand. Margaret's eyes held hers. Do you? Lena didn't answer. Margaret knocked twice, then opened the door. The room was large, bright, filled with bookshelves and medical equipment. A hospital bed sat unused in the corner. In the center, facing the window, was a man in a wheelchair. He didn't turn. Ethan, Margaret said gently. This is Lena Hart, your new nurse. Silence. Then, slowly, the wheelchair spun. Lena's breath caught. Ethan Prescott's face was twisted. His mouth drooped, one eye half closed. His hand shook violently as he extended it toward her. Pleased to meet you. Lena forced her expression steady. She stepped forward, took his hand. It was warm, steady. And then he grinned. Straight, sharp, entirely normal. Gotcha. Lena pulled her hand back. Margaret sighed. Ethan! What? Just testing her reflexes. Lena's jaw tightened. She looked him in the eye. Humor isn't the cure for all wounds, Mr. Prescott. His smile faltered. She turned to Margaret. May I be excused? Margaret's expression was unreadable. Of course. Lena walked to her car, hands shaking. She sat in the driver's seat, staring at the dashboard. He mocked his own disability to see if I'd flinch. She started the engine, put the car in reverse, then stopped. She thought of Maya's braces, Jenna's asthma inhaler, Keisha's textbooks, her mother's oxygen machine. She got out, locked the car, walked back inside. Margaret was waiting in the foyer. I'll stay, Lena said. Margaret's smile was small, sad. I thought you might. Have you ever had to choose between pride and survival? If this story is stirring something in you, subscribe and stay with us. There's so much more ahead. The next morning, Lena arrived at 7. The house was still. Sunlight slanted through tall windows. She climbed the stairs, knocked once, and entered Ethan's room. He was convulsing. His body arched, his hands clawed at the wheelchair armrests. Sweat soaked his shirt. Lena's training snapped into place. She pressed the emergency call button, grabbed a towel, soaked it in cold water. Ethan, can you hear me? His eyes rolled. His voice came out strangled. Don't move, my legs. Spasms, nerve pain. She pressed the cold towel to his forehead, steadied his head with her other hand. Breathe. I'm here. You're safe. His breathing slowed. The convulsions eased. His eyes focused. He stared at her. You came back. I wasn't sure I would either. Something shifted in his face. Not gratitude. Fear. He thought I'd leave him like this. Margaret and Richard arrived with the physical therapist. They administered medication, adjusted his positioning, checked vitals. When they were alone again, he spoke. Why did you come back? She set down the blood pressure cuff. Because running away doesn't pay the bills. Honest. You want me to lie? No. He looked out the window. Everyone else does. Lena pulled up a chair, sat across from him, eye level. I don't pity you, Mr. Prescott. Pity is useless. But I do see you, and I'm not afraid of you. His jaw tightened. You should be. I'm a wreck. Maybe, but you're a wreck who's still breathing. That's more than some people get. He laughed, bitter, sharp. Then he looked at her again. Call me Ethan. Ethan. That was the moment something shifted. Not romance, not yet, but recognition. Two people who understood what it meant to keep moving when every instinct said to stop. Over the following days, a rhythm formed. Lena arrived at 7, checked vitals, assisted with physical therapy, read aloud from the engineering textbooks Ethan kept stacked beside his bed. He didn't mock her anymore. He explained combustion ratios and suspension geometry like he was teaching a colleague, not a nurse. And slowly the house began to feel less like a tomb. One afternoon, a little girl appeared in the doorway. 6 years old, pale, with dark curls and a medical bracelet on her thin wrist. Uncle Ethan? His face softened instantly. Mira, come here. She climbed into his lap carefully, mindful of his legs. He wrapped an arm around her. This is Lena. She's helping me. Mira looked at Lena with wide, serious eyes. Are you nice? Lena knelt. I try to be. Are you? Mira considered this. Sometimes, when I'm not scared. That's the best kind of nice. Mira smiled. Then she whispered, My heart doesn't work right. That's why I can't run. Lena's chest tightened. She glanced at Ethan. His jaw was set, eyes distant. "Then we'll find other ways to have adventures," Lena said gently. Mira's face brightened. "Like drawing?" "Exactly like drawing." Over the next week, Lena taught Mira to draw. They sketched cars together. Sleek, impossible designs with wings and hearts for engines. Ethan watched from his wheelchair, something unguarded in his expression. One evening, Mira whispered to Lena. "He smiled today. A real one." Lena glanced at Ethan. He was reading, but his mouth curved slightly. He's starting to let us in. Then Adrian Cole arrived. Lena was in the kitchen when she heard the voices. She stepped into the hallway and saw a man in an expensive suit shaking hands with Richard and Margaret. Tall, polished, smiling. "It's been too long," Adrian said. His voice was smooth, practiced. "I wanted to check on Ethan." Margaret's smile was tight. "That's kind of you, Adrian. Is he receiving visitors?" "I'll ask." Adrian's eyes swept the hallway, landed on Lena. "And who's this?" Margaret gestured. "Lena Hart, Ethan's nurse." Adrian's smile widened. He extended a hand. "Adrian Cole, old friend of the family." Lena shook it. His grip was firm, his palm dry. Too perfect. Too controlled. "Have we met?" he asked. Her pulse quickened. "I don't think so." "St. Lawrence Hospital, 3 years ago. I was there after an incident. You were on the trauma rotation that night." The memory clicked into place. The man brought in with minor cuts, claiming he'd tried to help. While down the hall, Ethan Prescott fought for his life after catastrophic brake failure. Adrian had been there, at the scene. "First on site," he'd said. She forced her expression neutral. "I treated a lot of patients." "Of course." He released her hand. His eyes held hers a beat too long. "Well, it's good to see Ethan in capable hands." When he turned back to Margaret, Lena saw it, a flash of something cold beneath the charm. Recognition, warning. "He knows I remember." That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She pulled up old files on her laptop. Hospital records, news articles, Ethan Prescott, 31, critically injured in workshop accident, brake system failure during test drive, Adrian Cole, CEO of Titan Motors, first responder on scene. She scrolled deeper, found an archived maintenance log, one with Adrian's digital signature time-stamped 30 minutes before the test drive. The report noted a routine brake inspection, all systems normal, but the accident report showed catastrophic brake line failure, no corrosion, no wear, just severed. She cross-referenced the workshop security system. Footage deleted, but the metadata remained. Deletion authorization. A Cole admin. Why would someone delete footage of a routine day, unless something on that footage needed to be hidden? Then she found the pattern. 3 months before Ethan's accident, Titan Motors had been on the verge of bankruptcy. Adrian's company was hemorrhaging money, losing contracts to Prescott Manufacturing. 2 months after the accident, Titan Motors secured a massive buyout deal, purchasing key patents and manufacturing rights from Prescott's board while Ethan was still in intensive care. The timing was surgical. Ruthless. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Don't say anything about me. You don't want to lose your job." AC. Lena's hands trembled. She took screenshots, saved everything to 3 different cloud accounts. But sleep wouldn't come. Lena began digging deeper. Late nights after her family was asleep became her investigation time. She pored over public records with the methodical attention of someone who knew one missed detail could mean the difference between justice and disaster. Corporate tax documents, insurance filings, lawsuit settlements. board meeting minutes that had been made public during various merger discussions. The more she found, the worse it got. She discovered that Adrian hadn't just been at the workshop that day. He'd requested access specifically to inspect potential collaboration opportunities with Prescott's adaptive suspension project. He'd been given a security badge. Full access. 35 minutes alone in the workshop before Ethan arrived for the test drive. Then she found the backup, a third-party server that handled overflow storage for the workshop's security system. Something the police investigation had never checked because they'd accepted the simple explanation: accident caused by equipment failure, no foul play suspected. The clip was 18 seconds long. Grainy, but unmistakable. Adrian in the workshop, alone. Crouched beneath Ethan's test vehicle, partially hidden by the car's chassis. A wrench in his hand, the right size for brake line fittings, checking his watch, making an adjustment, standing, wiping his hands on a cloth, walking away with the casual confidence of someone who'd just completed a routine task. The timestamp, 2:47 p.m. The accident occurred at 3:22 p.m. Lena watched the clip 17 times, looking for any other explanation, any possibility that Adrian had been doing something innocent. Checking tire pressure, examining suspension components. But there was no innocent explanation for why he'd wiped his hands afterward, for why he'd looked around to make sure he was alone, for why he'd deleted this footage the day after Ethan's life was destroyed. Her stomach turned. This wasn't corporate rivalry. This was premeditated, calculated. Murder that had failed only because Ethan's body had been strong enough to survive the crash that should have killed him. She wanted to tell him, needed to tell him. But how? He was barely holding on as it was. Some days he could barely bring himself to get out of bed, to face another round of painful therapy, another reminder of everything he'd lost. What would it do to him to learn that the man he'd trusted as a brother, the man who'd visited him in the hospital, who'd spoken at press conferences about the tragedy, who'd consoled his family, had been the one who'd destroyed his life? One morning, Ethan noticed her distraction. She'd been staring at the medication tray for 3 full minutes without moving, her mind replaying that 18-second clip. "Something on your mind?" She looked up, startled. "No, just tired." "You're a terrible liar, Lena. Your left eye twitches when you're not telling the truth." She touched her eye self-consciously. "Does it, really?" "No, but you just confirmed you're lying." He rolled his wheelchair closer. "What are you hiding?" "Nothing." "Lena." His voice hardened, the protective shell sliding back into place. "Don't treat me like I'm fragile, like I'm made of glass that'll shatter if you tell me something difficult." "I'm not." "Yes, you are. You're deciding what I can handle, just like everyone else. Just like my parents, who whisper in corners and stop talking when I enter a room, just like my sister, who looks at me like I'm already dead." His hands gripped the wheelchair armrests. "I thought you were different." Her chest tightened. "That's not fair." "Then tell me. Whatever it is you're hiding, just tell me." But she couldn't. Not yet. Not until she had more than a deleted video clip and suspicious financial transactions. She needed something concrete, something that could actually lead to consequences, something that wouldn't just hurt Ethan without providing any path to justice. "I can't. Not yet." Ethan's face went cold. The shutters came down. The man who'd begun to trust her disappeared behind walls of ice and anger. "Then we're done here. Get out." "Ethan, get out." She left. Closed the door behind her with a quiet click that felt louder than any slam. Leaned against the hall wall, tears burning her eyes, fists clenched so tight her nails bit into her palms. Inside, Ethan grabbed the technical manual from his desk, a 1,000-page engineering textbook that had once represented everything he loved about his work, and hurled it across the room. It hit the wall with a crack that echoed through the house, pages scattering like wounded birds. Margaret appeared in the doorway moments later. She didn't speak, just watched her son with the patient, sorrowful gaze of someone who'd witnessed too many of these moments. "She's lying to me," he said, his voice raw. "Everyone lies to me. Everyone decides what I can handle, what I should know, what I'm strong enough to hear, as if being paralyzed made me a child." Margaret crossed to the window slowly, her footsteps soft on the carpet. "Your father wanted me to force you to keep fighting. Every day, every treatment, every experimental procedure. He believes love means never letting go, never accepting, never stopping the fight." Ethan looked at her, confused by the sudden shift in topic. "But I've always believed," Margaret continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "that love is knowing how to let go, when to hold on with everything you have, and when to release your grip, when to fight, and when to accept. It's the hardest wisdom to learn." She turned to face him. "That girl isn't lying because she pities you. She's not treating you like a child. She's protecting something, or someone. The question is, do you trust her enough to wait until she's ready to tell you?" Ethan said nothing, but his mother's words settled into him like stones dropping into still water, creating ripples that would eventually reach every shore. Margaret moved toward the door, then paused. "Your father and I signed that DNR directive with you 2 years ago because we thought letting go meant giving you the choice to leave. But I'm beginning to understand that real love, the kind that endures, is staying when every instinct says to run. It's trusting when every experience says to doubt." She met his eyes. "That's what Lena is doing, staying, despite everything." After she left, Ethan sat alone in his room, surrounded by scattered pages of technical diagrams and equations that once would have thrilled him. He thought about Lena's face that morning, the shadows under her eyes, the way her hands had trembled slightly when she'd reached for the medication tray. She wasn't hiding something because she thought he was weak. She was hiding something because she was afraid. And that scared him more than anything. That night, Lena received another message. Not a text this time. An email. From an encrypted account with no identifying information, just a string of numbers and letters that could have come from anywhere in the world. Attached, the 18-second video she'd found, Adrian beneath the car, the wrench, the timestamp, everything, and a message that made her blood run cold. "You have 48 hours to disappear. Pack up. Move on. Find another job, another family to leech off of. If Ethan sees this footage, if you say one word about what you think you know, your family will pay the price. I know where your mother gets her treatments. St. Mary's Medical Center, 3rd floor, Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. I know which school your nieces attend. Roosevelt Elementary, Mrs. Chen's 1st grade class, and Mrs. Rodriguez's 2nd grade. I know your sister walks home alone from the diner at 11 p.m. every Tuesday and Friday. I know things about you that you've never told anyone, and I have resources you can't begin to imagine. This isn't a threat. It's information. What you do with it is your choice, but know that choices have consequences for everyone you love. Choose wisely. AC." Lena stared at the screen, her hands shaking so violently she nearly dropped the phone. Rage and terror warred in her chest, each emotion so intense it nearly choked her. He was threatening her family. Her mother, fragile, dependent on treatments she could barely afford. Maya and Jenna, innocent children who had nothing to do with any of this. Keisha, working 3 jobs to get through school, walking home in the dark because they couldn't afford a car. He'd done his homework, knew exactly where to apply pressure, exactly how to make her understand that this wasn't an empty threat. He had the means. He had the motive. And he'd already proven he was willing to destroy anyone who stood between him and what he wanted. She could report this to the police, but it would take weeks to investigate, months to prosecute, and in the meantime, Adrian would have time to cover his tracks, to make good on his threats, to hurt the people she'd spent her entire adult life protecting. Or she could walk away, protect her family, let Ethan remain in the dark, let Adrian get away with attempted murder because the cost of justice was too high, let the bad guy win because the alternative was unthinkable. She sat in her car in the Prescott driveway for 20 minutes, engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles went white, thinking, calculating, weighing impossible choices. Then she made 3 copies of everything. Every document, every email, every piece of evidence she'd gathered. She sent one encrypted package to her own secure email, the one Adrian didn't know about, the one she'd created specifically for this. One to a lawyer her sister knew from the diner, a woman who'd once told Keisha that if she ever needed help with anything illegal or dangerous, to call her. And one to a journalist who'd covered corporate fraud cases and had a reputation for protecting sources even when threatened with jail time. Then she wrote a letter. Not to the police, not to a lawyer, to Ethan. She explained everything in detail, the footage, the deleted logs, the threats against her family, the timeline of Titan Motors' financial collapse and miraculous recovery at Prescott Manufacturing's expense, the maintenance log with Adrian's signature, the security deletion authorized by his admin account, the fact that he'd been alone in that workshop with full access to Ethan's vehicle. She didn't editorialize E, didn't add emotional appeals or pleas for understanding, just presented the facts as clearly and completely as she could, like a medical report or an accident reconstruction. At the end, she wrote, "I'm leaving to protect my family, not because I don't believe in you, not because I don't want to help you, but because the cost of staying is too high for people who have nothing to do with this fight. Everything you need to pursue justice is here. The evidence is solid. The timeline is clear. But if you choose to let it go, if you decide that moving forward matters more than looking back, I'll understand that too. You've survived something that should have killed you. You've rebuilt a life from wreckage. You've learned to breathe through pain that would destroy most people. Whatever you decide to do with this information, know that watching you fight has been the most inspirational thing I've ever witnessed. Not because you're brave or strong or any of those empty words people use when they don't know what else to say, but because you're real. You're honest about the pain. You don't pretend it's easy. You don't perform recovery for anyone's comfort. And that matters more than you know. Lena." She put the letter in a sealed envelope. Drove to the estate one last time. Let herself in with the key Margaret had given her weeks ago. The house was dark, silent, everyone asleep. She climbed the stairs quietly, each step feeling like a betrayal. Opened Ethan's door just wide enough to slip inside. He was asleep in the hospital bed. Not the wheelchair. He'd finally started using the bed at night after weeks of Lena's patient insistence that proper rest would help with pain management. She set the envelope on his desk. Beside it, the flash drive with all the evidence. Then she stood there for a moment, watching him sleep. His face was peaceful in a way it never was during waking hours. Younger, less burdened, she wanted to stay. God, she wanted to stay and fight this battle beside him, wanted to be there when he finally confronted Adrian, when justice was served, when the truth came out. But love sometimes meant making the harder choice, the one that hurt, the one that looked like cowardice but was really just calculation, protection over pride. She left, closed the door behind her with a click so soft it barely made a sound. and drove away from the Prescott estate for what she thought was the last time. Because sometimes, walking away was the only way to keep everyone you loved safe. Ethan found the letter at dawn. He'd been awake all night, rage and shame churning. When he rolled to his desk and saw the envelope with his name in Lena's handwriting, something in his chest cracked. He opened it, read it again. The footage, the timeline, the threats against her family. She left to protect me. He grabbed his phone, called her. No answer. He looked at the letter, at the flash drive she'd included. Adrian had destroyed his body, stolen his company's patents, and now he'd driven away the only person who'd made Ethan want to keep living. Ethan called his father. "I need you to do something, and I need you not to ask questions." Richard's voice was wary. "What?" "Get Lena Hart's family into protective custody, now. Her mother, sister, brother-in-law, nieces, all of them." "Ethan, Dad, please, if you've ever trusted me, trust me now." Silence. Then, "I'll make the calls." Inside, Ethan stared at the folder. Then he threw it across the room, screamed until his voice gave out. And then, in the silence that followed, he pulled out the document he'd signed 2 years ago with his mother. The DNR, the euthanasia directive. "When life becomes unbearable, I choose peace." Margaret had cried when they'd signed it, but she'd signed it anyway. Love is knowing how to let go. Ethan held the paper in shaking hands. It would be easy. Stop fighting. Let the exhaustion win. But then he thought of Mira's drawing. The car with a heart for an engine. He thought of Lena's voice. "You're a wreck who's still breathing." He looked at the letter. At her handwriting. "She walked away to keep me safe." And something inside him shifted. He wasn't going to let Adrian win. Not like this. He reached for his phone. CTA 5, The Abyss. "What do you hold on to when everything you believed turns to ash?" By noon, Lena's family was in a secure hotel downtown, guarded by private security Richard had hired. Keisha called, confused and frightened. "Lena, what's happening?" "I'll explain everything. Just stay there. Don't leave. Don't talk to anyone." "You're scaring me." "I know, I'm sorry. But you're safe now, I promise." When she hung up, Lena sat in her car outside a grocery store parking lot, exhausted and empty. Her phone rang. Ethan. She almost didn't answer. Then she did. "Lena." His voice was raw. "Where are you?" "It doesn't matter. Your family is safe. My father has them in protective custody." Her breath caught. "What?" "I read your letter. I know what Adrian did, what he threatened, and I know why you left." Tears burned her eyes. "Ethan, come back, please." "I can't. If he finds out..." "He already knows. I called him." Her blood went cold. "You what?" "I told him I have the footage, the logs, everything, and that if he comes near you or your family, I'll bury him." "Ethan, you can't. He'll what? Kill me?" Ethan laughed, bitter and sharp. "I've been trying to do that myself for 3 years. Let him try. This isn't a game. No, it's war, and I'm done losing." The line went silent. Then Ethan spoke again, quieter. "I was going to do it, Lena. The euthanasia plan. I had it in my hand. I was ready." Her chest tightened. "Ethan." "But then I thought, if I die, Adrian wins. He gets away with it. And you sacrificed everything for nothing." His voice cracked. "I can't let that happen. So I'm asking you, come back. Help me fight him. Not as my nurse, as my partner." Lena closed her eyes, felt the weight of the choice. "I'll be there in an hour." When Lena walked back into the Prescott estate, Ethan was waiting in the foyer. Margaret stood beside him, Richard behind them. Ethan looked up at her, and for the first time she saw no mask, just raw, desperate hope. "Thank you," he said. She knelt in front of his wheelchair, took his hands. "We do this together. No more secrets." "No more secrets." Richard cleared his throat. "We've contacted a forensic investigator and a criminal attorney. Adrian doesn't know yet, but we're building a case." Margaret added softly, "But it will take time. Weeks, maybe months." "And in the meantime?" Lena asked. "We keep you both safe," Richard said, "and we don't let him know we're coming." But Adrian wasn't waiting. That night, he struck first with the calculated precision of someone who'd been planning this contingency all along. A news article went live on a major financial blog at 11:47 p.m. Prescott heir accused of harassment by former business partner. Claims of erratic behavior raise questions about family company's future. The article was a masterpiece of character assassination disguised as concerned reporting. It claimed Ethan had been sending threatening messages to Adrian for months, that he'd become increasingly unstable and violent since the accident, lashing out at former friends and colleagues, that the Prescott family was covering up his dangerous behavior to protect the company's reputation and stock value. Attached, screenshots of text messages, Ethan's phone number clearly visible, threatening language that sounded exactly like someone having a breakdown. Messages talking about making him pay, about knowing the truth, about not letting him get away with it. All fabricated, meticulously crafted, polished enough to be believable to anyone who didn't know Ethan personally. The story spread with the viral efficiency of modern media. Within 2 hours, it was on 6 different business news sites. Within 4 hours, it had made Twitter's trending topics. By morning, it was being discussed on financial news networks, with talking heads debating whether the Prescott family should force Ethan into psychiatric care. Ethan's phone exploded with calls and texts, investors demanding explanations, board members expressing concern, lawyers advising immediate public statements, former colleagues asking if he was okay. Their voices carefully neutral in that way that suggested they already believed the worst. Margaret turned off the TV in the sitting room, her face pale and drawn, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for the remote. "He's trying to discredit you before you can expose him." Ethan stared at his phone, watching the notifications pile up faster than he could process them. Messages from people he hadn't spoken to in years, all suddenly very interested in his mental health. Rage and helplessness warred in his chest, creating a pressure that felt like it might crack his ribs. "How do we fight this?" Lena's voice cut through the chaos, steady and calm. "With the truth. We release the footage. The logs. Everything we have. If we do that now, it'll look like retaliation," Richard said from the doorway. He'd been on the phone with lawyers for the past hour, his usually composed face showing cracks of stress. "Like we're making up evidence to defend ourselves. Adrian's team will claim we fabricated it, that Ethan's instability led him to create a false narrative to justify his threatening behavior. Then what do we do?" Ethan's voice rose, echoing in the high-ceilinged room. "Let him destroy my reputation? Let him turn me into the villain in my own story? Let everyone believe I'm some dangerous, unstable—" Margaret placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle but grounding. "No, we wait. We let him think he's won. We let him get confident, careless, and when he makes a mistake, because men like Adrian always do when they think they've already won, we strike with everything we have." Lena met Ethan's eyes, saw the struggle there, the desire to fight back immediately, the humiliation of watching lies spread about him while he had truth locked in a file on his computer. "Can you do that? Can you wait while they say these things about you?" He looked at her, at his mother, at his father standing in the doorway with a decade's worth of weariness in his eyes, at the people who hadn't abandoned him even when he'd given them every reason to. "Yes," he said finally. "I can wait." But inside, the DNR letter whispered its siren song. The voice that said, "Just let go," grew louder with every notification, every news alert, every person who believed he was exactly what Adrian claimed him to be. Margaret watched her son's face and saw the battle being waged there. She thought of the night they'd signed that document together, both of them crying, both of them believing that sometimes the most loving thing you could do was give someone permission to stop fighting. But now she understood something she hadn't then. Letting go wasn't about giving up. It was about releasing what you couldn't control. The opinions of strangers, the pace of justice, the outcome of battles you couldn't win alone. But it was also about holding on to what mattered. To truth. To the people who stood beside you. To the belief that goodness, eventually, had to count for something. She just hoped her son could hold on long enough to see it. 3 days passed like a slow bleed. Ethan barely ate, barely spoke. The smear campaign intensified. More articles. Anonymous sources claiming he'd been reckless before the accident. That perhaps the brake failure wasn't Adrian's fault at all. Lena stayed. Not as a nurse, as a witness, a friend, a shield. But she could see him fading. One night she found him staring at the DNR document again. "Ethan." He didn't look up. "Do you believe in God, Lena?" The question caught her off guard. "Yes." "Do you think he forgives people who give up?" She sat beside him. "I think he understands why we want to. My mother said love is knowing how to let go." He looked at her. "What if letting go is the loving thing? For everyone? Is that what you think?" "I think I'm tired, Lena. So tired." She took his hand. "Then rest. But don't leave. There's a difference." He closed his eyes. "What if Adrian wins?" "Then we tried. But he hasn't won yet." "How do you know?" "Because you're still here." The turning point came from an unexpected source. Mira. She was sitting in the garage with Lena, drawing another car, when she said, "Why is everyone mad at Uncle Ethan?" Lena hesitated. "They're not mad, sweetheart. They're confused." "About what?" "About something that happened a long time ago." Mira set down her crayon, looked at Lena with those serious dark eyes. "Mr. Cole did it." Lena's heart stopped. "What?" "The car thing. That hurt Uncle Ethan. Mr. Cole did it." "Mira, how do you know that?" "I saw him. I was here that day. Mommy brought me to visit. I was hiding in the office because I didn't want to do my breathing treatment." She pointed to a door off the garage. "I saw him go under the car. He had a tool. He was breaking something." Lena's hands shook. "Did you tell anyone?" "I tried to tell Grandma, but then Uncle Ethan got hurt, and everyone was crying, and I forgot." "Mira." Lena knelt. "This is very important. Do you remember what day it was?" "My birthday, May 7th. I was 4. Lena pulled out her phone, checked the date of the accident. May 7th, 3 years ago. Mira saw it happen. "Can you tell that story again? To Uncle Ethan? And maybe some other people?" Mira nodded. "Will it help him?" "Yes, sweetheart. It will help him very much." When Lena brought Mira to Ethan's room, he was in bed, staring at the ceiling. "Ethan," Lena said gently, "Mira has something to tell you." He looked at the little girl. She climbed onto the bed, careful as always. "Uncle Ethan, I saw Mr. Cole break your car." Ethan's breath caught. "What?" she told him. Every detail. The hiding, the tool, the breaking sound. When she finished, Ethan pulled her into a hug, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you, little one. Thank you." Lena called Richard immediately. Within an hour, a child psychologist and a forensic interviewer were on their way. Mira's testimony, given carefully, recorded properly, was clear, consistent, and damning. A 6-year-old girl with a congenital heart condition had no reason to lie, no motive to invent. She was simply telling the truth. And that truth changed everything. The case moved swiftly after that. Mira's testimony gave them credibility. The forensic evidence gave them proof, and Richard's legal team gave them teeth. Within 2 weeks, the police obtained a warrant. They seized records from Titan Motors, recovered the original security footage from a backup server Adrian didn't know existed. The pattern was undeniable. Adrian Cole had sabotaged Ethan Prescott's test vehicle, had profited from the resulting corporate takeover, and had spent 3 years covering his tracks. When the arrest came, it was quiet, dignified, no media circus. But Ethan watched the news footage of Adrian being led from his office in handcuffs and felt nothing. No triumph, no relief, just emptiness. Lena found him by the window that night. "How do you feel?" she asked. He was quiet for a long time. "I thought I'd feel vindicated, or angry, or something." He shook his head. "But it's just hollow." "That's normal." "Is it?" "Yeah. Justice doesn't undo the pain, Ethan. It just stops it from happening to someone else." He looked at her. "I keep thinking about what my mother said, that love is knowing how to let go." "Do you think she was right?" "I think she was talking about holding on too tight, controlling." He paused. "But I also think letting go can be giving up. And I'm trying to figure out which one this is." Lena sat beside him. "Maybe it's neither. Maybe it's choosing what to carry and what to release. Have you forgiven me for pushing you away?" She smiled. "There's nothing to forgive. You were scared. I was scared. We're human. I don't want you to be my nurse anymore." Her heart sank for a moment. "I want you to be my partner." She stared at him. "In the business. The new one I'm starting. Adaptive vehicle design. Cars for people like me, like Mira." He took her hand. "I can't pay you what you're worth, but I can offer you equity, a future, a purpose." Tears stung her eyes. "Ethan." "And," he continued, voice softer now, "if you'll let me, I'd like to offer you more than that. Not now, not yet, but someday, when I'm stronger, when I've earned it." He met her eyes. "I'd like to love you, if you'll let me try." Her breath caught. "You already do," she whispered. "And I already love you back." He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. Soft, reverent. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for not giving up on yourself." The trial came 4 months later. Adrian Cole was convicted on multiple charges: corporate fraud, criminal negligence, attempted murder. Ethan testified. So did Mira. So did the forensic experts. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Ethan watched the verdict from the courthouse steps, Lena beside him, his parents behind him. When it was over, Margaret whispered, "Are you at peace?" Ethan thought about it. "Not yet, but I will be." Richard clapped his shoulder. "You fought well, son." "We fought well," Ethan corrected, looking at Lena. "All of us." Recovery was slow, real, grounded in sweat and small victories. Ethan agreed to restart physical therapy, not because he believed he'd walk again, but because Lena and Mira showed up every morning and refused to let him quit. They worked in the garage, the one where everything had gone wrong. Lena insisted, "You can't heal if you're hiding from it." The first day, Ethan sat in his wheelchair, staring at the workbench. The tools. The place where Adrian had stood. "He was here," Ethan said quietly. "Adrian. Right there." Lena nodded. "Yes. And I trusted him." "Trust isn't a mistake. Betrayal is. You didn't cause this." "He did." Mira tugged on his sleeve. "Can we paint the wall?" Ethan blinked. "What?" "The scary part. Can we paint it? With flowers?" He looked at Lena. She smiled. "Why not?" They painted. All three of them. Mira chose red and yellow. Lena added green stems. Ethan, hand shaking, added a small blue heart in the center. When they finished, Mira clapped. "It's beautiful." Ethan stared at the mural. Something loosened in his chest. "Yeah," he said. "It is." 8 months later, the garage was no longer a tomb. It was a workshop. Bright, loud, alive. The mural still covered one wall. Flowers and a blue heart where the scorch marks used to be. Ethan sat at a drafting table, sketches spread before him. Mira colored beside him, her medical bracelet replaced with a fabric one Lena had sewn. Red, with a tiny car embroidered on it. Her heart surgery had been successful. She still tired easily. But she ran now. Short bursts. Joyful sprints across the lawn. Lena walked in, carrying coffee. She set a cup beside Ethan. "Your mom called. Dinner's at 6. She's making your favorite. Are you coming?" "If you want me to." He caught her hand. "Always." She kissed the top of his head, ruffled Mira's hair. "How's the design coming?" Lena asked. Ethan gestured to the blueprint. "Good, really good. We've got interest from 3 adaptive equipment distributors, and a grant from the National Mobility Foundation." "That's incredible." "It's necessary. There are too many people out there who've been told they don't belong in the driver's seat." He looked up at her. "I was one of them, for a long time. And now? Now I'm building something that says they do." Outside, the first prototype sat in the driveway. The last engine. A small electric car with hand controls, a rear entry ramp, and space for a child's seat. The exterior was painted deep blue with silver accents. Simple. Honest. Built for people who'd been told they didn't belong. It wasn't fast. It wasn't sleek. But it was real. And it worked. Ethan rolled his chair to the window, looked out at it. "The last engine," he murmured. Lena joined him. "Still love that name." "It runs on something other than speed," he said. "What does it run on?" He looked at her. At Mira. At the mural on the wall. "Hope," he said. "Stubborn, ridiculous, impossible hope." Lena smiled. "That's good fuel." Mira climbed into his lap. "When can I drive it?" "When you're 16. "That's forever," Ethan laughed. "Then you better start practicing patience now." "Patience is boring." "Patience," Lena said, "is how we got here." Mira considered this, then nodded, satisfied, and went back to coloring. Outside, Margaret and Richard stood on the porch, watching through the window. The evening light was golden, soft. "She saved him," Richard said. Margaret shook her head. "They saved each other." "Do you think he'll marry her?" Margaret smiled. "I think he already has, in all the ways that matter." Richard put his arm around her. "You were right, you know, about letting go." "Was I?" "Love is knowing how to let go. You said that when we signed the DNR." Margaret's eyes grew distant. "I said it, but I was terrified it meant I'd lose him." "You didn't." "No, because Lena taught him the difference between letting go and giving up." They stood in silence, watching. Inside, Lena whispered to Ethan. You know what I realized? What? I used to think I was just hired help, someone passing through. And now? She rested her head on his shoulder. Now I think God puts broken people in each other's paths, so we can learn how to be whole together. He kissed her hair. That's a beautiful thought. It's a true thought. Mira yawned. Can we have pizza for dinner? They laughed, all of them, and in that moment, with the smell of motor oil and coffee, the sound of a child's laughter, and the warmth of hands held tight, they were home. 3 months later, Ethan and Lena stood in the community center downtown. They were unveiling the first fleet of last engine vehicles. 10 cars, donated to veterans, accident survivors, and people with mobility challenges. Lena had insisted on holding the event here, not at the Prescott estate, not in some corporate showroom. These cars aren't about wealth, she'd said. They're about dignity. Ethan gave a short speech. His voice was steady, clear. 3 years ago, I thought my life ended in a garage. I thought I'd never move forward, never create again, never matter. He paused, looked at Lena standing beside him, at Mira in the front row, grinning. But I was wrong, because life doesn't end when you stop moving. It ends when you stop trying. The crowd applauded. He continued. These cars aren't perfect. They're not fast. They're not going to win any races. He smiled. But they'll get you where you need to go, and sometimes that's enough. More applause, tears, gratitude. When it was over, a man in his 60s approached Ethan. He had a prosthetic leg and kind eyes. Thank you, the man said simply. For what? For remembering us, for not giving up. Ethan shook his hand. Thank you for reminding me why it mattered. The exchange was brief, honest, and in that moment, Ethan understood something he'd been searching for since the accident. Purpose wasn't about what you could do before. It was about what you chose to do now. That night, back at the estate, Ethan and Lena sat on the back porch. The fireflies were out, blinking in the summer dark. Mira had fallen asleep on the couch inside, curled up with one of Ethan's old racing jackets draped over her like a blanket. She's getting stronger, Lena said. She is. So are you. Ethan looked at her. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Yes, you could have, eventually. Maybe, but it would have taken a lot longer, and hurt a lot more. Lena leaned against him. I'm glad I stayed. So am I. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after you've fought through hell together and made it to the other side. Finally, Ethan spoke. I got a call today, from a hospital in Boston. They want to buy 20 units for their rehab wing. Lena's eyes widened. Ethan, that's amazing. It's more than that. It's proof that this works, that people need this, and that you were right to keep fighting. He took her hand. There's something else I've been thinking about. What? You, me, this. He gestured between them. I know we said we'd take it slow, and we have, but I don't want to wait anymore. Her breath caught. I'm not asking for perfection, he said. I'm not even asking for easy. I'm just asking for real, for honest, for you and me, building something together. Ethan, I love you, Lena Hart, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you too. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring, simple, silver, with a tiny blue stone. It's not a diamond, he said. It's a sapphire, the color of the heart on the mural, the color of hope. She laughed through her tears. It's perfect. Will you marry me? Yes, God, yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger. They kissed, soft and slow, under the fireflies and the fading light. Inside, Margaret watched from the window. She smiled, whispered to the empty room. Love is knowing when to let go and when to hold on. 1 year later, the wedding was small, intimate, held in the backyard of the Prescott estate under the oak trees. Mira was the flower girl. She took her job very seriously, scattering petals with surgical precision. Keisha stood beside Lena as maid of honor. Maya and Jenna sat in the front row, fidgeting in their dresses. Ethan waited at the altar in his wheelchair, his father beside him. When Lena walked down the aisle, no white dress, just a simple cream gown and wildflowers in her hair. Ethan's breath caught. She was radiant. Real. His. The ceremony was short. The vows were honest. "I promise to stay," Lena said. "Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." "I promise to fight," Ethan said. "Not against you, but with you. For us." They exchanged rings, kissed, and the small crowd erupted in cheers. Later, at the reception, Ethan and Lena sat together, watching their families mingle. Keisha was deep in conversation with Richard about business school. Her tuition, now fully funded by a scholarship Ethan had quietly arranged. Lena's mother laughed with Margaret, the two women bonding over recipes and grandchildren. Maya and Jenna chased Mira through the garden, their laughter ringing out. "We did it," Lena whispered. "Did what?" "Made a family. A real one." Ethan squeezed her hand. "We're just getting started." 5 years later, the last engine company had grown. 50 employees, partnerships with hospitals, rehab centers, and veteran organizations across the country. Ethan still couldn't walk, but he could drive, could design, could lead. And he did. Lena ran the community outreach programs, connected families with resources, trained caregivers, advocated for policy changes. They worked side by side, partners in every sense. Mira, now 11, healthy, thriving, had taken up engineering. She spent weekends in the workshop with Ethan, sketching impossible vehicles and asking questions he loved answering. One Saturday morning, she looked up from her blueprint. "Uncle Ethan?" "Yeah, kid?" "Why did you call it the last engine?" He set down his pencil. Thought about it. "Because I thought my story was over, that I'd used up all my chances, all my fuel." He smiled. "But I was wrong. It wasn't the last engine. It was the first, the one that runs on something that never runs out." "Hope?" "Love," he corrected. "Hope gets you started, but love keeps you going." Mira nodded, satisfied. Went back to drawing. Lena walked in, carrying lunch. She kissed Ethan's cheek. "You two coming inside? Your mom made pot roast." "In a minute," she smiled, ruffled Mira's hair, headed back to the house. Ethan watched her go, felt the weight of the ring on his finger, the warmth of the sun through the window. He thought about the torn dress, the seizure, the letter, the trial, all the moments that had almost broken him, and the people who hadn't let him fall. He looked at Mira. "You know what I've learned?" "What?" "None of us are whole on our own. But together?" He gestured around the workshop, at the family inside, at the life they'd built. "Together we're everything we need." Mira smiled. "That's a good lesson." "Yeah," Ethan said. "It is." Outside, a last engine car pulled up to the house. A young woman climbed out, using the hand controls, navigating the ramp with practiced ease. She waved. Ethan waved back. Another person finding their way forward, another life rebuilt. The engine hummed softly in the driveway. Not the roar of a race car, not the thunder of speed, just a steady, reliable heartbeat. the sound of hope, the sound of home. And in that quiet moment, Ethan understood what his mother had been trying to tell him all along. Love wasn't about holding on so tight that nothing could escape, and it wasn't about letting go so completely that nothing remained. It was about knowing which battles to fight, which wounds to tend, and which hands to hold when the night grew dark. It was about choosing to stay, choosing to build, choosing to believe that broken things could be made beautiful again, not perfect, but real. And that was enough. None of us are truly whole until we learn to listen to the heartbeat of others. If this story touched you, leave a comment below and tell us what moment stayed with you most. And if you want more heartwarming stories like this, stories of redemption, hope, and found family, subscribe. We'll be here every night with a new story to carry you home. Thank you for listening. And remember, your last engine might just be your first.